Two Worlds, One Family by Dragon Translator. Chapter 6. You Changed the World Here. 'Tis a long one. Toothless jumped into the air, and every dragon, even those with riders, followed. It took several hours, since Hiccup had to avoid the part where the woodcutters would be the following day, but soon all dragons found dens that suited them. Hiccup called it a success, even if he had to break up 2 growling matches and 1 wrestling fight. The last dragon to find a home was the older nightmare who had spoken for all the dragons.
Alpha, do you wish for one of each species to join your lessons with the humans?
Sure, though a small group would be best at first.
That is wise. I will meet with the other elders before I sleep, and we will find those who wish to join you.
Hiccup tilted his head. He then looked to Toothless. He remembered something Toothless had said, and now had a chance to seek clarification. You said dragons gain wisdom from elders and your ancestors?
Yes,
Toothless said before tipping his head towards the nightmare.
The Flameskin is the oldest of the other Flameskins. They will look to him for guidance. Protector is right. I and the other elders have lived long. Dragons will seek our guidance because of that. We also hold the tales and stories of our ancestors. These stories aid us in giving guidance. Our ancestors have lived before us, have faced much of the same issues we do. Seeing how they overcame or did not overcome helps us.
The nightmare sighed.
The monster almost destroyed this. Elders, with their influence, were seen as threats to her rule. I would have been eaten soon, due to my age, but you saved me and the other elders. Now we can live and guide and teach younger generations once more.
The nightmare bowed.
Thank you, Alpha.
Hiccup smiled, happy something he had done had aided another. He then frowned, thoughtfully, and rubbed the back of his neck. Would you be offended if I gave you a name? He said, There are so many nightmares around, and I know I'm going to get confused.
Nightmares? Is that what humans call us Flameskins?
Yes, monstrous nightmares, actually. Our old books of dragons said your kind were the fiercest and most powerful of the dragons, and only the best Vikings went after one of you.
The nightmare chuckled. We are strong, but our strength comes from a willingness to lay our lives down for our nest. At least, that's what my father always said. I would be honoured if you gave me a name. It is not something usually done amongst dragons. We will give titles, but not names.
Okay, I'll think of some, and let you choose the one you like best.
You would let me choose?
Well, yeah. It's your name. You have a right to pick it. The nightmare shook his head.
Truly, the ancestors blessed us. There can be no other reason for one such as yourself. I dare say you exceed the tales I heard of an Alpha from the southwest.
Hiccup blinked, then straightened. I think I know of a good name for you, he said. Lawkeeper. You said the elders tell the ancestors' stories. Those are the sagas of your people. Your law. The nightmare tilted his head, and then purred.
I like it.
Hiccup grinned. Then, Lawkeeper, welcome to the nest.
Lawkeeper laughed. Thank you, Alpha. Come by when you have a free moment, and I will tell you some of the ancestors' tales. I know the other elders will do the same for their kinds as well.
Thank you. If you need anything, find me or one of my friends. We will help you. Lawkeeper smiled. Hiccup and the others returned to the village. By the position of the sun, Hiccup knew evening meal would soon be served. It did not surprise him when most of the other riders said their goodbyes and left. It did surprise him when Gyda and Shadowfire said their goodbyes and walked away. Hiccup looked over, finding Astrid and Stormfly standing there. He smiled. At least they would get their walk in, even with all the craziness. Astrid dismounted Stormfly, and Hiccup gestured for her to precede him. He frowned when she did not smile like she used to. Nevertheless, he walked beside her as they meandered through the quieting village and greeted people moving to their homes or to the Great Hall. So, Astrid, Hiccup began as they reached the cliff where sheep were allowed to graze at times. I wanted to thank you. Why? You helped me through all of that. Astrid smiled. Now that I have my memories, I will remember telling you that I'm going to stand with you. Hiccup returned the smile, and then rubbed the back of his head. Still wrapping my head around that one. Our memories, or that I'm standing with you? Both, Hiccup said, then grunted and rubbed his arm as she lightly socked him on the shoulder. Hiccup, Astrid began. Why did you ask Gothi about bandaging wounds? Hiccup sighed. He stared over the cliff edge at the darkening waters of the ocean. He really did not want to get into that, but knew Astrid would not easily be persuaded to let it drop. I had to know, he whispered. He heard Astrid hiss, and glanced over to find her glaring at the water, hands fisted. Hiccup reached over and placed a hand on her shoulder. She flinched, and Hiccup lifted his hand. Astrid looked over. I'm sorry, Hiccup. Astrid, you already apologized. 3 times. Astrid sighed. It's not enough, Hiccup. Not for what you went through. Not for what we put you through. Hiccup jerked and placed both hands on Astrid's shoulders, turning her to face him, fully. Please don't. You apologized. It is enough. You don't have to bandage yourself anymore, Hiccup. The others will help. I'll help. Thank you, Astrid. He heard Stormfly and Toothless beginning to converse in the old tongue, and glanced back to find both laying with their heads facing the village, and their tails towards himself and Astrid. Odd, he said, lifting his eyebrows when Stormfly lightly flicked at Astrid's leg with the tip of her tail, making sure none of the spikes touched her rider. Very odd. He turned to see if Astrid knew what Stormfly was doing, only to find her quickly turning to face the water. Hiccup frowned and placed a hand gently on Astrid's shoulder. Are you okay? He asked. Hiccup, can we go to the cove? Sure. Toothless and Stormfly were on their feet immediately. Not long after they left the village, they touched down by the pond in the cove. Astrid dismounted, and Stormfly moved to lie down. Astrid walked off to stare at the water, lapping gently on the side against the dirt bank. Hiccup slid off Toothless's back, and blinked when Toothless moved to lay down near Stormfly. Normally, the dragons played and chased each other when Astrid and Hiccup visited the cove. Toothless even taught Stormfly to draw with a tree sapling one day. Hiccup shrugged before moving to join Astrid by the pond. It had been an interesting, if somewhat trying day. The dragons were probably tired. Being back here, Astrid began, after getting my memories. You changed the world here, Hiccup. Hiccup rubbed the back of his head. I don't know about that. My invention trapped Toothless here. But another of your inventions let him fly again, and we gained so much more because of that. You thanked me for helping you. We should all be thanking you daily for what you've done for us. I didn't do it alone, Astrid. You all saw that. You all helped me in the end. But not before, Astrid whispered. Hiccup slowly reached over and placed a hand on her shoulder. What's wrong? Normally you're telling me about Stormfly and something new you've taught her. Nothing is wrong. A squawk echoed through the cove. Hiccup looked over, finding Stormfly staring at her rider. He heard Astrid sigh, and turned back to face her. His eyes widened when Astrid lunged forward and kissed him. His brain shut off completely, but his body responded. He pulled her close and returned the kiss. All too soon, Astrid pulled away. Not that I'm complaining, he said softly, but don't you usually hit me before kissing me? Gyda, Astrid began. She stopped me to talk after we got her settled. Okay, Hiccup said, confused. How could getting Gyda settled into the Hoffersons' house cause Astrid to kiss him? She told me she was not in the way. In the way? Way of what? Astrid did not answer. She just spun back to face him and kissed him again. Hiccup knew as soon as she was done he would pinch himself. This could only be happening in one of his many dreams. This could not be real. Astrid pulled away and hissed. I can't. I'm not you, Hiccup. I'm not good with words. Hiccup blinked and pulled Astrid into a loose embrace. No matter his wild imaginings, his friend was upset. He would help her. What are you trying to say? You know you can tell me anything, Astrid. I'm not going to judge you, and I'm not going to tell anyone else. I promise. He felt Astrid relax and step closer. How do you do that? She asked in a whisper. Do what? Make me feel better with just a few words. Not sure. I'm glad you feel better, though. But what words did you want to say and couldn't? Astrid froze. You don't have to tell me if you don't want to. Astrid grunted before she stepped back and placed her hands on Hiccup's shoulders. She kissed him again. Hiccup blinked. Astrid pulled back and stared at him. I care about you, Hiccup. Hiccup tilted his head. I care about you too, he said, confused. No, Hiccup. I care about you. Hiccup blinked, and his eyes widened. He opened his mouth, but no words would come. Astrid lifted her hands and Hiccup jerked. He tightened his hold and kissed her. He had never initiated a kiss before, too fearful of asking for something he wanted, but knew he could not have. She returned the kiss, and he felt as if he were astride Toothless when the dragon was in a playful mood, and their flights consisted of many high-speed acrobatics. Astrid cared about him in a way he had wanted since he knew what that meant. She was the best teen Viking Burke had ever seen, and she cared for him. The one-time worst Viking Burke had ever seen. Hiccup's world was perfect. Breath became an issue and Hiccup had to pull back. He laid his forehead on hers, uncaring that the metal studs on her headband poked him. He would gladly endure the uncomfortable prodding because it meant he could hold her close. Then something she said made it through his still frozen brain. Not in that way. Astrid, did you think Gyda and I... Astrid sighed. She accepted you. She told you that you had worth, when no one else saw, when no one else cared. Hiccup pulled Astrid closer. Now that we have our memories, I know Gyda became my first human friend. But she... I see her like a sister, Astrid. And I think she's older than us, so she'd be like Toothless, an older sibling. You listened to me, Astrid. What? Here, that night. You listened to me. When I didn't want to tell my dad about the rest. When I didn't want to tell my dad about the nest. You listened to me. You said okay and asked me what we could do. You didn't tell me what I should do, or what I should think. Well, you saw in Gyda's home, with the fire and the raid. I felt that way about you since I was 13. Hiccup paused.
I want to court you, Astrid Hofferson.
Good. I want to be courted.
Really?
Astrid lifted an eyebrow, then kissed him.
Hiccup closed his eyes and returned the kiss, still amazed by what just happened.
End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. Yee! Hextred! I ship these two so hard. And one thing I love about them is their communication. There are very few true misunderstandings between the two after the first movie. There are one or two occasional arguments, but that's normal for couples. They don't have that massive back and forward emotional poison you often see on couples to drive the drama. For them, the drama is how they interact with issues, but it's not so sickly, and when it is, it's generally when they're in private because they need their time alone. And I just really appreciate that about them. Throughout this fig, you will hear me gushing about Hextred a lot, okay? It's a given. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye, my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.